Hi there, my name is John Henning. I'm the project manager here at Hume Architecture. I've become the rendering person here, taking on most of the responsibilities for rendering out our projects for all of our clients' visualization. That involves kind of taking our base models, our 2D drawings, bringing that into a separate program and giving the client a photorealistic view. I started doing all of these renders back in school about sophomore year while I was pursuing my master's at the University at Buffalo. And we started using Lumion with a mix of Rhino. Those are the program names. Lumion is the rendering software and Rhino is the 3D modeling software. All of those things kind of put together gave you a pretty basic image. If you were to do it very quickly, Lumion allowed you to do something in no time at all. It would take 2 minutes, 3 minutes to render out photos. When you're talking about other programs, I've mentioned this before, called V-Ray, you would take days, honestly, just to render out the photo. So what Lumion allowed these, especially students, to do was have a free program that students could use, rendering out images very quickly, but it gave you a very early 2000s graphics style, and nobody really wanted that, but it was really easy to get, really quick for tutorials, and really good for the final reviews, which a lot of professors saw. And you would instantly know, like, that's a Lumion render. But what you wanted to take away from that is, how can we improve this? How can we really start to trick people and make it look a little bit better, more realistic? Lumion has also definitely taken a lot of strides in that and have added a ton of bells and whistles, ray tracing, PBR materials, all of these other things you might have heard of if you're into rendering at all. And we really have started to integrate a lot of those into our projects today. I'm going to take you through here. We're going to go through some of the earliest renders that I did at Hume Architecture. I could also show some stuff maybe in a later date of the stuff I did at school, but as of right now, we're going to take a look at when I started here at Hume Architecture. So I'm going to take you through our very first model. This here has a series of buildings, 2 buildings stacked up on one another with a garage on a property that we had purchased about 2017, 2018. We wanted to render out some different options, get a good feel for what the property looked like, then put some materials on it and see if anybody was interested in the property. This didn't end up going through. We kind of just didn't want to go forward with the project, ended up selling the property. It wasn't the right spot, but this was my very first kind of dive into the renders here. So we can see very basic. There's just straight edges. There's nothing really showing you any natural forms or natural materials here. This gets the point across, and I can go into kind of the different renders that we've made here, but I'm just going to take you through the 3D model just right this second. You can wrap around here. The walls are all very basic. You can just put a very easy texture on it, just a vertical wood siding, which is what's on here. You can actually see here the driveway that wraps down into the road there, and then you have a little bit of texture here with the terrain. There's nothing really that stands out, especially on the exterior here. So now we're taking a look at the actual renders that we got from that 3D model. So that 3D model gives you the base to allow me to put textures, trees, bushes, all the other small things that you might want to put in. Here you can see the terrain. I've added the grass texture. I've added the background of trees. Most of the time, we'll actually take site photos. We'll take 3D views from Google Earth. We'll also take drone videos and we'll incorporate them. That's something that I've learned a little bit as we've gone forward. But with these very early models, I was just mocking up best I could what the site looked like, putting in trees that were roughly in the same spot, same size, same species. And Lumion's actual library was a little bit lacking at the time of this, so you don't have nearly as much detail as we do now, where we have thousands of different species and different sizes and different colors and all these other things. So here there's that vertical siding that I was telling you about. There's no need to model each individual plank. You can actually put this material right on that flat face and it gives it a little bit of depth. As we've gone further with the rendering software, we added things like depth maps, normal maps, which allow you to push and pull the different low points and different high points of those materials. And you can see here, there's another view. That exact thing I was just telling you about, that normal bump texture map, you can actually see it on this window right here. This window has a little bit too much of a bump map going out, so it's very wavy. We don't want that typically. You want it to be a little bit more flat. But again, this is the very first one that we ever did, so just learning the different techniques and what you can add here. Another thing, looking at the ground, everything is flat. There's not really a lot of terrain changes, contouring, anything like that, which is something else that as we go a little bit further into showcasing what these properties really look like, you're gonna see the foundation a little bit, you're gonna see some weeds growing up in different locations, just adding that much more realism to try and bring the client into the space, but also trying to realize it myself and see what materials work best. Working with other people here in the office like Nick or Lovepreet, we can kind of take through, get their perspective on it, add in a little bit more detail. Taking a look on the backside here, this is just a little bit further out. These views, one thing that I really started to learn when I was doing these renders was how to take the views and not look at it just as a render model or just as a 3D model. This gets the point across. It shows you the building, it shows you the land surrounding it. There's not really too much to these photos. It's really just giving you a basic view of what it looks like, and it does get the point across. But one thing that it's lacking is the style of architectural photography. So this one is probably the closest that any of these get to, but even within that, this first series of renders that I did aren't taking that into consideration. When you're looking at different architecture magazines, blog posts, websites, you can see that the photographer's looking for something, whether it's light, whether it's a texture, a material, a view out of a window, or maybe it's going to be a person within that space. I typically don't showcase people within any of these spaces. The Lumion models are iffy sometimes to actually show people's faces, so you don't generally want to show them, or else the realism really does get taken right out of it. So I try to take people out of the equation. You can definitely add in some blurring and other stuff like that. I've done more recently on some commercial projects. So now we're taking a look at the same exact project, just a little bit later down the line. This was actually about a year later. We had come back to it, wanted to put a little bit more detail into the project. I started to experiment with a couple different things. You can see those grass textures kind of popping up there. I did change the grass texture, but all in all, it's a very similar shot. I did try and mimic some of those architectural photography styles, like I said, so you're kind of back, you're getting the dark and the light side of this. Also, you can play with kind of where the sun is located, which is really something that helps this. The rain is also something that really helps sell realism, and especially in these Lumion renders. Early on, they didn't have any way to mask the texture mapping. So a lot of the times, if you were to put it down like an asphalt texture or a gravel texture, you could see it repeating. That's just how these textures work. They work in squares. Each of these squares repeats over a series of infinity, essentially, as big as your material that you have mapped is. So if I have a 10 by 10 wall, and if you have a 1 by 1 texture, it's going to map itself 10 times in one direction, 10 times in the other. And you will see each of those tiles. But what Lumion has started to incorporate is a randomization mapping. So that takes out of the equation where you can see all those squares overlapping, and it kind of rotates them around, pushes them in different directions, and you won't see any of those. But early on, the technique to get around that really was to just use rain. Puddles would get rid of it instantly, and it makes it look a little bit more realistic, a little bit more dark and moody, which sells the realism a bit more instead of just like perfectly blue sky day. I mean, we're in Western New York, we don't get a lot of those, so you normally would be seeing it like this, and it helps sell that just a bit more. I also started to experiment with some lighting within the actual spaces, adding in some lights directly into Lumion. You can see here on the bottom of the screen, the light kind of exiting the building. It's a little bit bright, a little bit brighter than it should be, but in the garage, we also have a nice soft light that's coming out there. So now we're looking at the actual interior space, and compared to what we had just seen, now we get a little bit of life. You're adding in a couch, you're adding in some shelving, some different small details, rug, TV. You can see the towels hanging up on the left over there. This just makes the space feel lived in, and it's not just an empty room, which doesn't help sell most of the time. When we're showing a client what it's gonna look like, it helps to put in furniture that they're interested in, or even just having them tell us kind of the furniture that they have bought already or are planning on, and we try and model that best we can. Having these spaces feel lived in definitely helps sell the actual home on a more client level, because we can see these things in 2D and we can show them, yeah, this is where your stove goes, this is where your sink goes, but you don't get to say like, I want a farmhouse sink. And this here, you can see exactly what that looks like within 3D, and it's not just looking down on a plan. So this helps give you the idea of butcher block cabinets or butcher block countertops. Maybe you want to do that, or if you want to go towards marble or a different stone, the white backsplash, these are different things that we can change out. But for this model was just something that we were kind of experimenting with, trying different ideas out. And one more shot, just looking down the driveway there. Definitely trying to get a little bit more artistic with it. I'm still learning, I still am, you never stop. But this is the very first project, so we're gonna take a look at one of my more recent projects to get a different idea for the complexity and the detail that we've added in. All right, I'm gonna stop talking because I've already acknowledged the loud sounds. Hey, stop making noises down there! Sorry. These kids. I'm the youngest one here. A winery, so we had two different kind of LED lights there on the wall. Oh, damn, you hate to see it. You hate to see it. It's okay. Hey, come here. Come on.
All right, I'm coming.
Come on, you just pause it. Yeah.